What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Soft Cell, and we're returning to the 3-disc 12-inch mix compilation. Once again, big thanks to Kim, who mentioned last time that this tune, Born to Lose, another non-album track, is actually a cover of a tune written by Johnny Thunders. I didn't know who that was when she mentioned that, so I looked him up on Discogs. Apparently he was part of the New York Dolls, as well as the Heartbreakers, but seems to have released a number of solo albums as well. In any case, the phrase is funny to me, Born to Lose, whether that's a self-assessment or an external reflection on someone. It sounds like there's fate being invoked, someone suggesting that teleologically they were always likely to fail, to come up second, or to otherwise not succeed in their endeavors, and whether that's related to their environmental or external factors, or somehow their intrinsic character or lack of abilities. It suggests a long, hard road full of not achieving what one is setting out to, or not gaining a foothold in the complicated and often daunting world of life. So yes, it sounds fitting for Soft Cell to cover a tune like this. Certainly the darker end of Soft Cell's category. Not that any of their tunes are necessarily bright and happy and full of a bed of roses, but even within that understanding about their themes and their typical narratives or scenes that are painted, I feel like this phrase sounds especially well suited to a Soft Cell cover. So in any case, let's give it a listen. This is Soft Cell and their version of a song called Born to Lose, apparently originally written by Johnny Thunders.
That's the way it goes. The city is so cold, and I'm so sold. That's why I go. I can't help it. Born to lose, born to lose, born to lose. Baby, I'm born to lose. Nothing to do.
Wow. So, yeah, it almost felt, at least until the final phase of the song, it almost felt like a tune that could be a more melodic late 70s, early 80s punk type of tune. You maybe could hear it done in like rockabilly style. It still had the soft cell keyboard kind of sound, which then became very prominent in the latter stages. Although even then it felt a bit like outside the lines, like very sonically off the rails, if you will. And that one sound, I wasn't sure if that was like a guitar with effects or whether that was a keyboard but with a guitar type sound. It almost had an alarm type of quality to it, so definitely it got more intense sonically toward the end. But in terms of the atmosphere of the tune, it did feel a bit more like fun late 70s, early 80s punk rock, but I suppose within a synth pop framework than some of their other tracks where they felt more overtly keyboard sounding. I guess what I'm saying is the guitars stood out here, or at least felt like they were more prominent than on some of their other tunes, and it felt lighter sonically compared to others, though not light per se, or compared to some other groups at this time, of course. But yeah, so it sounds like mostly the Born to Lose condition is because of outside circumstances and even more specifically environment, and about the way a big city can be depersonifying. I'm not even sure that's a word, but the way it can make people anonymous and just cogs in larger systems and machines, and incapable of finding a community, a support network, resources that make life more bearable and success more likely. And so it sounds like it's the big, cold, and harsh city outside that has led this narrator, I think, or I'm still not sure if he was talking about himself or someone else, but I think it was himself. But yeah, it sounds like it's the conditions, the circumstances they find themselves in that makes them feel they're born to lose, not a inherent or an inherent lack of ability or naivety or other personal defect. It sounds more like it's, this is a tough, cold life, and the city I'm in is uninviting, unwelcoming, and not conducive to a balanced and healthy life. So, yeah, it sounds like Born to Lose is more imposed on the narrator rather than radiating out from him in some teleological sense. Nevertheless, as I said, it seems like a good song for Soft Cell to cover, and certainly, as I was saying, the latter stages of it sonically feel more like a typical Soft Cell song where it feels gritty and a bit intense and like it's sort of going off the rails relative to the earlier sonic atmosphere, which had, again, a bit of a fun synth pop meets more melodic late 70s, early 80s punk rock type of feel. So a cool tune, cool cover. Again, if you know anything about Johnny Thunders or about, where this track was released, I suppose I could check the metadata. Sometimes it shows in the metadata, but I don't know if that's the case for this one. Let me just get a quick check here. Yeah, it says it comes from the third disc of the 12-inch single, so I don't know where this may have been released originally when they recorded it. Either way, once again, big thanks to Kim for sharing all the supplementary Soft Cell material, as well as to Han Solo, who shared some of the material that I went through, which I didn't originally have from them. And also, I think I started the Soft Cell journey with some of the vinyl I have, and I think also that CD single, which had the medley of Tainted Love and Where Did Our Love Go. So ultimately, the Soft Cell materials come from different places, but from Kim in particular, so big shout out to you. Let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.